Some Democrats on Capitol Hill are pushing back, saying the Clarity Act would be bad for America and we need to stop it at all costs, even hosting special hearings calling out the SEC director and the Trump administration for all their recent crypto moves. We also had John Oliver in his show on Sunday go after the crypto industry and Trump. Man, they're bringing out the big guns here. I want to take a look at what's being said right now on Capitol Hill, what the crypto industry is up against. We also hear from Eleanor Terrett that credit unions are actually moving to support the Clarity Act. So it's not all bad news here, but we have a ton of updates as we normally do. Let's go through it together to better understand. We also have a recent interview with Laura Shin and Kristen Smith, the president of the Solana Policy Institute. Kristen has been one of the key negotiators on the crypto side, and she has a lot to go over with us as well. I did want to kick off with the clip from the John Oliver show, which people are sharing. Actually, this one has about 35,000 views, but everybody's sharing the same clip. This one we have here is every kind of Democrat or every kind of comedian is saying the Clarity Act isn't the answer, but yet Democrats have not really provided what the actual answer looks like here. You have 60 million Americans. 1 out of 5 Americans owns crypto. That's not a small number. This is not a fringe part of the population here. This is a actively growing population of people that wants to be protected when they engage in the crypto industry. And you can use these talking points from 2, 4, 5 years ago, but they're just getting stale with today's viewers and listeners. Obviously, you can see there that the average crowd for John Oliver is probably not your crypto investor, probably doesn't know too much about the technology and what's actually happening with stablecoins and the adoption from banks and financial institutions. But right now, we don't have anything, and it's a free-for-all still in the crypto market. And if we do want to be relevant in this new digital age and be able to compete against other countries, what do you want us to do? Just sit on our hands? That's the problem I have here. There's so much complaining, but there's yet not a lot being done as far as solutions go. You do have some Democrats like Also Brooks and Gallego and a few others that have been engaging with Republicans to try to get this bill to a place that is acceptable for both sides. But the far left here doesn't want to see this bill, wants to see it dead on arrival because it'll hurt Trump at the end of the day. Now, it'll also hurt every other American here, but they're not really maybe taking that into consideration. And that's the frustrating part that at least I'm seeing. All right, here's kind of one of these maybe special hearings that Democrats held to talk about the Clarity Act. And it went as well as maybe you thought it would, and not good for the crypto industry.
Get in. They know their position's bad. They also know they need to pass this bill right now. Because if they don't get this bill passed, and the Democrats take back the House, they'll have a much more leverage to negotiate something that's actually reasonable when it comes to cryptocurrency. So they need to pass it right now. I really appreciate your work on this issue, Senator Van Hollen, as well as Senator Blumenthal, and thank you, Senator Durbin, for being here. I am scared to death that 7 Democrats, maybe it's even 6 now, is all that's necessary to get this bill passed. You cannot be against Trump's crypto corruption and then vote for a bill that enables that corruption to continue.
There it is, right? You can't vote for the Clarity Act if it's basically they're tying the two together, right? If you vote for the Clarity Act, you're voting for Trump to continue doing what he's doing. We haven't been able to separate those two things, right? And it is unfortunate that there's really nothing in the bill that really stops President Trump for kind of continuing to do what he's doing, because the language in the bill kind of grandfathers Trump in to continue what he's doing, but it kind of stops people after him. So it's not super great in the position that we're in, and it's still very up in the air here. There's nothing that says for sure this is going to get done, and there's nothing to say that this is crashing and burning in real time.
Those two things are just fundamentally in conflict. So I hope that, and I see Senator Murphy's here as well. So we've got some good allies on our side, but I hope that members of the Democratic caucus are paying attention.
All right, let's continue here. Another point of view here, anti-Clarity Act.
Crypto is now in a kind of enforcement netherworld where we depend on laws that were not designed to protect against crypto abuses, an agency that is supposed to enforce against securities violations stripped of its practical authority by this administration.
Absolutely. And for the chairman to do, at the SEC to do this,
this is
it's really
interesting.
remarkable. When I was there, even if there was one district court decision that was somewhat against what the SEC believed, the whole building would change in terms of their approach. This chairman has said none of these things and withdrawn every single rule, every single guardrail, and just said, I don't care about this crypto. But even worse, Senator, he goes around promoting it like a carnival barker. That's another thing no chairman had ever done during my time. They're not supposed to advocate particular types of investing. But he goes to all these crypto shows. He stands up and launches Project Crypto. And it's really, it's mind-numbing to watch the chairman of the SEC traverse the country marketing crypto to people who are going to suffer these devastating losses. All of those losses in the meme coin, the silence is deafening from the Division of Enforcement. Billions of dollars in losses, and the answer to that is not even an investor alert, not even a warning. Nothing. Silence.
The hard part here for Democrats is investors that invested into Trump's meme coin lost $3.81 billion. And Trump made $600 million on trading fees on that specific meme coin. So as you can see, a lot of investors, almost $4 billion worth of liquidity was kind of sucked out of the market on just that one specific meme coin. And that is the biggest divide here. And the real question becomes, would we even be having this fight right now if Trump actually wasn't engaged in the crypto market, if he hadn't been making billions of dollars off the particular space? That's the hard part here. Would Democrats be on board with creating a safer space for investors, for Americans to participate in the crypto market? Because right now it's still the Wild West. If we have crypto on an exchange and something happens to that exchange, you know where our money goes? It goes to pay the creditors of the crypto exchange. So if the crypto exchange took money out to do this and do that, our money goes back to paying them first, and we're kind of left out in the cold. And so there's just little protections here that would go a long way to make it safer for you and I to be here. But we continue the fight, and not many people are working on actual solutions. There's Republicans kind of working together with the White House on solutions that are okay for them. There's a few Democrats and Republicans working together like Tillis and Alsobrooks trying to find a middle ground. And then there's Democrats trying to kill the Clarity Act, right? There's just three massively different groups of people. And I think, I'm kind of more in the middle here. I would like to see a bill that works for both sides so you get enough support to get it done and people are protected. And if Democrats have such a negative view about the current bill, you've had years to provide something better. What have you been doing? Like, why not protect 60 million Americans so that we can invest in an industry that we find valuable, that we think has a future? All right, let's shift our mindset and our thought process. That was all kind of the negative that I just saw recently around the Clarity Act. Let's kind of shift to maybe some more of the positive and some updates.
I start from the fundamental premise with legislation in that you cannot have the perfect be the enemy of the good, particularly when enhanced consumer protections and law enforcement tools are at stake. No one in DC gets everything that they want. That's why it's a negotiation and it's not a capitulation. Here you have to baseline this bill against the status quo and ask yourself, will consumers be better off? And there is no longer a reasonable debate on that question. It is a resounding yes. And we know that because there's a growing consensus of groups that support this bill. So we have
yeah, go ahead.
You got law enforcement groups like the Fraternal Order of Police supporting it. Yeah. You have most major asset managers like Goldman Sachs and Schwab and BlackRock supporting it. And you have millions of crypto customers themselves supporting this bill because it provides these enhanced consumer protections.
There you go. And now you actually have, looks like credit unions. Eleanor Terrett was reporting here, the NCUA chairman Rodney Hood told us last week that credit unions have an important role to play in the modernization in the financial system. Days later, America's credit union CUs, joined by all 50 state credit union leagues, threw their support behind the vast majority of the Clarity Act, but echoed banks' concerns about the bill's stablecoin yield provisions, urging senators to strengthen the language. The groups argue that the current Tillis-Alsobrooks compromise could still allow functionally passive reward structures that pulls deposits away from credit unions. So interesting. Now you have law enforcement groups, you have now some credit unions, some financial institutions, and pretty much everyone that owns crypto in America now on board here wanting to see this thing get done. You know, if it was such a bad bill, why are you seeing support from some of these really big groups that you're looking at and saying, hey, this was a really bad bill? You probably wouldn't have the BlackRocks of the world, the America's credit unions, the law enforcement groups, the Noble Group of the world. I mean, they wouldn't be on board with this. So, man, just a freaking roller coaster. It's been insane to go through. I mean, I think out of maybe all of the content creators, I've probably made maybe the most content around the Clarity Act, because this is like the most important thing going on in crypto right now. And I want to understand every single aspect of it. And this has been a hell of a journey. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I know a lot of you have been kind of following this as eagerly as I am. Thank you for supporting the content with a like, and leave a comment down below if you guys have anything to say about this. Laura Shen says, I'm so disgusted with both sides. We wouldn't be in this position if Dems hadn't let Gary Gensler be completely unfair and partisan rather than neutral, and if Trump hadn't become the max extractor chief politicians. Max extractor in chief, excuse me, politicians suck. I think that's a very fair point, kind of right in the middle. Okay, Senate reconciled Clarity Act runs over 600 pages, but one late addition could hold up its passage.
It has been nonstop drama this year, trying to figure out the latest over the Clarity Act. I think we know at this point how important this really is to the overall industry. What remains unclear is whether or not it would pass, what the path forward actually looks like. For people who hear about this a little bit day to day, give us the latest as you understand it and where we stand a few months out from the midterms.
Yeah, so just a little bit of history. About a year ago, Congress passed the Genius Act, which was stablecoin-focused legislation. Right before that, so a little over a year ago, the House actually passed the Clarity Act. So we've been, working through the legislative process on the Senate side for about a year now. About a week ago, the Senate released a reconciled version between the Bank and Agricultural Committees, over 600 pages of text. But really, it focuses on broad market structure changes, bringing market structure definitions to types of digital assets, clarity on who would oversee those between the SEC and the CFTC, and also broader consumer protection into money laundering and different provisions. So a lot of negotiation behind the scenes. Really the hopeful path forward is that it'll go to vote before this August recess in a couple weeks. What we're hearing as late as today is that, in fact, there's a lot going on in terms of different legislative priorities. This may take a back seat, but it remains to be seen in the next couple weeks. I mean, we'll certainly have daily updates as to whether or not, we see a passage. One of the major holdups right now is an ethics provision. It was added a week ago to give, greater, if you will, teeth around kind of, what can be done, holding federal legislators, including the president, not allowing them to issue digital assets, if you will, but certainly on the Dem side, they feel that there need to be stronger provisions, and so there's still some air there that needs to be tightened and closed.
Now, that deal that he's talking about around ethics was from Senator Lummis and Senator Moreno working with the White House and the DOJ to get that language together. You also have Senator Alsobrooks, Senator Tillis, and Senator Gallego working on a different version of ethics that Democrats might be more on board with. And we're looking forward to seeing what that looks like here, maybe over the next few days. All right, here is Laura Shin and Kristen Smith. Kristen Smith is the president and Solana Policy Institute expert.
I think most of them support clarity. There is an open question from a couple of the members. If you look back at the Genius vote, you had Rand Paul and Senator Hawley. Both of them did not vote for Genius. It's unclear if that will be the same case or not with clarity. But regardless, you're going to need, somewhere between 8 or more Democrats on board. I think the good news is, if you look back to Genius, there were 18 Democrats that ultimately ended up voting for that bill, and you have a really active block of 7 or 8 of them in the Senate that are actively involved in the negotiations. And so I think if you can get that block, they will bring with them another 10 or so members. And so I think that, it's definitely possible to get the 60 votes.
Yeah, right now, the makeup in the Senate is 53-47, 53 Republicans. Mitch McConnell has been too sick to vote, so that's 52 Republicans. Josh Holloway and Josh Holloway and Rand Paul didn't vote for the Genius Act, so they might be kind of automatically out or maybe not interested in crypto. So right off the bat, you have 50 Republicans who might be voting for the Clarity Act, which you would need 10 Democrats to vote for this bill. Realistically, having maybe 12 or 13, having a little bit of a window there might be the best strategy. And I do think we'll get there. I do think this new ethics provision that both sides are working on right now might be good enough for Democrats to vote. And if you get that kind of group, Cory Booker, Alsobrooks, Gallego, Cortez Mastro, Mark Warner, and a few others, if you get them to vote for the Clarity Act, you will get the rest of them. And so, man, it'll come down to the wire here. You do have nominations. You do have the sanctions bill on Iran and Russia. That's going to take priority in the Senate over the next few days. Look towards Monday, August 3rd. If you want to maybe see if something is going to happen, it's going to probably happen on that day. There has been some conversation about keeping senators, after recess starts, basically August 7th, that's when they would go back to their home states. There has been some conversation about, if they have the votes, keeping senators in Washington for an extra few days just to get it over the finish line. Senators would go home on recess for over 5 weeks here. And so you kind of have this momentum built now. You don't want to have everyone go home and then have 5 weeks to think about it. You really want to strike while the iron is hot. And so look out for that new ethics provision from Democrats and Republicans, Tillis, also Brooks and Gallego here, maybe over the next few days. Maybe it's joined together with the bill, and that's what it takes to get this thing done. All right, that's my best shot to show you what the far left is saying, Democrats, the middle, and then the right. And you have opinions everywhere in between. I try to keep it, very kind of center on this channel, trying to show you kind of both sides of the argument and conversation. At the end of the day, I want to feel more protected. Yes, it's not a perfect bill. Yes, it could be a whole lot better. Yes, Democrats had years to maybe make the bill better or have their voices heard, and they really spent a lot of that time maybe going after and complaining. I mean, I'm thinking of the Elizabeth Warrens of the world. Some Democrats, also Brooks, and maybe the ones I just mentioned a few minutes ago, they have been negotiating with Republicans for an entire year on the bill. They've spent more time on the Clarity Act than any other bill this Congress. So there is a lot of support to get this thing finally over the finish line. And I do think it'll still happen. I'm still optimistic. All right, I'll leave it there. Thank you guys. Aloha.